Everybody, my name is Derek Peterson. I am the president of Hope Holdings, the founder and CEO of OneWay.com. Next up in my series of reviews of alternative social networks is Gab. Before I get started, let me reiterate what I said in the introductory video. This is because this is going to be a negative video, honestly. This is not me being critical of competitors. I don't consider any of these sites I'm reviewing in this series to be competitors in any way, shape, or form, because none of this is a money-making opportunity for me in any way. As a matter of fact, it's a huge, huge money loss and time loss drain for me. I haven't received any money from anybody. I don't intend on making a lot of money from this. I'd be happy to make my money back again that I've invested, which I'm sure I probably won't. I have no aspirations to be the next Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates or any of these type of people, okay? I'm honestly building this, as we all should be, because we care about free speech, we care about humanity, and we want to create technologies that help other people, okay? I'm not going to do any doxing of any kind, as I said in the introductory video. I'm not going to get anything personal about anybody. So there's doxes that are out there on a lot of these folks. I'm not going to talk about any of them directly. I don't really believe in that. I'm just going to focus on the things that they've said and done publicly, professionally. This is going to be a pretty graphic video. We're going to talk about some very graphic sorts of subject matters regarding porn, right? Some of the most awful sorts of porn, awful sorts of anything. And I've made it so that we're going to have a bunch of slides here and screenshots. So I've made it so we don't have to have any nudity, so I can at least publish it on OneWay.com. But it's going to be some very graphic discussions. So just be aware of that and be ready for that. If you're not, then don't watch it. Okay, so Gab was founded in 2016 by Andrew Torba, who is an American, and Ekram, forgive me if I say the name wrong, Ekram Buyukaya. He's a Turk. He lives in Turkey, and I guess they partnered with another project before this one that was like an ad selling to social networks of some kind, and like a bot for doing ads on social networks. So they started this in 2016. It's basically what it is. They took a like $50 script that you can buy on Code Canyon or something like that. Launched it. Remember, this was back in the days of the Trump, the Trump run, and when things were really intense. And so they launched this site and got some publicity right off the bat, and had people registering. The site wasn't able to handle the traffic, so they had to shut it down and just allow people to sign up on a list, right? And they continued to pump it at that point where the site could probably, with the tech that they started with, the site could probably handle not more than like 10,000 concurrent users, probably less than 5,000, maybe only 1,000, I don't know. But the site, it was PHP, MySQL, terrible script, terrible code, and they didn't have any Redis or anything. It was a joke, right? They couldn't handle any traffic at all. They tried to make it out like they had hundreds of thousands of registrations, and just the excitement was over the top, and everything was huge. Let me explain how that works, folks, because this is going to be a mean video, okay? This is the only one of the alternative social networks that I don't consider to be sincere, that I consider to be a fraud, okay? And this is a classic, what's called pump and dump, where they pump up the excitement, they build a bunch of excitement about something, get a bunch of money, and then dump it, or at least just let it fade away off into the sunset, or come up with some excuse in order to get it shut down so that they can go off in the sunset and keep the money and still be the good guys, the victims, right? So what they did is they launched the website with no CAPTCHA. CAPTCHA is the little code you put in, when you register somewhere to verify that it's a real person, to make it hard for bots to register. A bot are these like computers that'll just, through artificial intelligence, will just register. And you can do I've had sites before that did tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of these things in a week. Okay. It's just insane how many registrations bots can do. They didn't have any kind of CAPTCHA, and they didn't have any kind of email verification to verify who's who, okay? So somebody could just type in d@y.com, right? and get an account. Okay. So they didn't have any kind of where you have to, you register, then you have to go to your email, open the email, click on the link to verify your email. They didn't have any of that. So they had hundreds of thousands of these fake registrations that they claimed to be real users. Okay. They've been doing that ever since, right? It's very dishonest tactic. It's very childish tactic that's been around since as long as the internet's been around for. But most people don't dare do it because it just makes you look so tacky to anybody that understands what's happening. And you have to be pretty bold and sociopathic to be able to do something like that and keep a straight face. Okay. So they launched in 2016, like I said. They were pretty much right off the bat were raising like $20,000, $30,000 a month in donations, right? Claiming to be fighting for free speech and fighting for, against Silicon Valley and all of that, right? And they were making $20,000 or $30,000 a month. They, about a year after that or so, they raised $1 million in a crowdfunding campaign, okay? And again, claiming numbers that were just ridiculous, like hundreds and hundreds of thousands. We're going to get into the details on that in just a second. Claiming hundreds and hundreds of thousands of users, bunch of excitement, and sign up now and all this kind of stuff, right? And you'll get rich, right? And but again, these aren't real users, folks. Okay, they did have some real users, probably 10, 20,000 type real users, but they certainly didn't have hundreds of thousands of users. They had bots, lots and lots and lots of bots, just like Twitter does. But these guys, proportionally, were the vast majority of the content on the website was being generated by bots. Okay. So they raised $1 million. They were given $1 million. This was over a year ago or so. And since then, they've really done nothing, surprisingly. I thought that they would have at least spent some of the money on improving the site to at least look good, because they were going for, right after they did that, they announced another round where they were going to try to do this $5 million round through the SEC's approval. And so they fought and fought and fought for that, but that was eventually rejected by the SEC recently. And now they've launched another campaign to raise another $1 million. Okay. And they honestly, folks, I've been doing this for 20 years. This website doesn't cost more than $10,000 or $20,000 to build. And it takes like 4 weeks probably to build something like that they have here. Lock, stock, and barrel. Okay. It's an awful, awful website. Very, very, very simple website. Certainly doesn't cost millions of dollars to build. Okay. They were given $20,000, $30,000 a month for several years now, right? So you're talking, $500,000, $750,000 there, and then given another $1 million in that first round of venture capital money. Okay. And it's very odd, to have that much money and have such an awful, awful website. Okay. So I don't think anybody could be that incompetent. It's impossible. At some point you can say, well, you can just blame it on incompetence. But at a certain point you have to say, this isn't just incompetence. This is a scam. Nobody can be this incompetent, right? You can't have that bad of a site with that much money. You could just go hire some company that knows what they're doing and say, here's $250,000, make me an awesome website. And then still have $750,000 left over, right? I don't know why they haven't done that. But anyway, it's a lot of money that they've raised and they haven't done anything. And they continually pump and pump and pump about the numbers that they're generating, right? Recently, in this latest attempted money raise that they're doing now, by the way, this shows up on startengine.com/free speech. This is the campaign that they're currently running on StartEngine. I mean, StartEngine is, I don't know what their problem is. I mean, the Gab was just rejected by the SEC apparently for this $5 million round. StartEngine's not stupid. They know perfectly well that this is a scam, that this is a pump and dump scam, but they're lying about the numbers. Of course, StartEngine, in their terms, we're not responsible if someone doesn't tell us the truth, right? But they take a huge percentage of money and from these campaigns that are doing this. So they'll probably make, I don't know, $100,000 out of the $1 million on this campaign. So they kind of get paid to look the other way, right? So folks, just real quick off the top, when everything falls apart, if you invested and you lose your money and there's no more money left in Gab because they shut the company down, sue StartEngine, okay? They're complicit. They know these people aren't stupid. They got smart people working there. They're involved in a fraud too, okay? So you need to sue Start Engine when things go bad, okay? And so in their offering, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but you know, their financials haven't been updated for like almost a year. So they launched the thing right at the end when their financials would be due, so they don't have to show where they're at for the last almost 12 months. So who knows what's going on really legally there. It's very, very, very fishy stuff that's going on, right? So in this newest round that they're doing, they're claiming to have 660,000 users, right? That's a lie, folks. That's a total bold-faced lie. Okay, this is fraud. This is pump and dump fraud. These are 660,000 registered users. He's changing the terms here from the first time because I confronted him several times and said, these aren't real active users. He claims it on his website over and over again that these are users, right? Now he qualifies it and said registered users. But whenever he promotes the site, he's trying to make it out like these are actual real users. Okay. And then in the fine print here, he said he's trying to parse it, or trying to, give himself a little grace there. In his earlier offerings, he didn't do that. Okay. So he knows perfectly well that these are bots that registered. They're not real people. And then he tries to further qualify it by saying we're able to determine that users are unique via confirmed email addresses, right? Again, they don't have any email verification. So it doesn't matter. Somebody could put in, A@A.com, B@B.com, C@C.com, and just register and register and register, right? So it doesn't mean, just because they're using a different email address doesn't mean it's a unique person or a real person, right? And IP addresses, again, they had no way of tracking that. They have no idea. Users can have multiple IPs, right? And it's just ridiculous, the stuff he's saying here, for anybody that knows. Then he qualifies it again and says, but they could always change their IPs with VPNs, right? And which of course is true, but you don't need to worry about any of that stuff if you just have email verification and CAPTCHA. But of course they don't do that, because that would block all the bots, and then they would show zero growth. They would show what their real numbers are, right? If they removed all the users that never logged into their accounts, then they would have like nobody left. They would have probably 10 to 20,000 real active users on the site on a monthly basis, literally. So everything they say is pretty much off by a factor of 10 times a lie. It's a lie based on a 10x, okay? So here they say, during the 30 days prior to the filing, approximately 250,000 of our registered users have logged into our platform. That's a lie. There's no way this site can handle that traffic. These are the same users logging in over and over again, okay? This is not in any way, shape, or form real. And even if it was real, they're claiming right off the top that 400,000 people are basically gone. So their real user count is 250,000. But he never says that. He always says we have 660,000 users, right? But if you only had 250,000 register, according to your own claim, which is still a lie by a factor of 10, if you had, then you should say I have 250,000 users, not 660,000 users. So it's still a lie, right? And again, folks, this, for anybody that's involved in these things, that's been in this world, this is so obvious and so ridiculously obvious that it's annoying, honestly, that somebody would be so bold to make up this kind of stuff. It's very frustrating, the parsing they do with the language. It's like in the old days when people would say, we had 100,000 hits today. And normal people that weren't involved in the world would think a hit is a page view, right? Or a visitor, right? When a hit, one page could have 100 images on it and make 100 hits from viewing one page, right? And so they try to trick you on these terms, okay? He'll never reveal his real numbers. He'll never give someone like me access to that data or make that data publicly available so they can see how many real users he has, because it would be shown very quickly that this is a total pump and dump fraud, that he's lying about his numbers. Remember, when you're doing evaluation on an internet company, all that matters really is the technology. And again, this technology is worth about $20,000, and your users, your visitors, right? Your user reach. And then, any other assets you have, right? And so the technology is worthless. And so the only valuation he can try to attribute to anything here is numbers, and he's lying about that. Okay, so that's it. And now he's claiming like a $10,000, or he claimed like a 10,000 or 10 million rather, sorry, valuation the first round, and now he's doing another 10 million valuation, or I think it's even more than that in this round. I don't remember exactly, but it's a lot of money. Okay, and there's no justification for that kind of evaluation, right? But again, he's lying about his numbers. Okay, if I'm lying, sue me. If I'm being malicious or slandering or defaming, sue me. Okay, and let's see the numbers and see who's lying. We know the numbers. We've looked into the numbers. My people have figured it out. He's lying. Okay, the numbers are nowhere near that. Okay, sorry if that sounds harsh, but this isn't a game. This isn't playtime. Okay, you can't commit fraud. He's going to get all alternative social networks, all alternative media. He's going to get them all. When this comes out as a pump and dump scam, he's going to get them all regulated, right? Which he seems to be all for, calling for regulation all over the place. Okay. So again, he's lying about his numbers. He claims all of these big mass waves and exoduses from Twitter. The latest one was this Twitter purge of the Kenyans, right? So they had this Kenyan surge where this character here was kicked off of Twitter, and like 500,000 of his followers, right? He doesn't have 500,000 followers, folks. He had about 750,000 bots. Again, a bot is not a person. A bot is just a computer generated identity. Okay. So he had like, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of bots. I've read different articles. Some said he had 1 million bots. Some say 500,000, 750,000. Anyway, whatever. So he got a bunch of his accounts. Twitter, rightfully so, bumped a bunch of his accounts off of Twitter, right? Because they were fake accounts, they're bots. And he gets paid big bucks, this kid in Kenya, to run advertising campaigns to all of his followers who aren't real people, okay? And so he works for hire, by the way, right? So what happened was he got those Twitter accounts bumped, and then they had a surge to Gab, right? Like, I don't know, it was like 20,000, and then they were claiming like a 50,000 and all these numbers. I don't remember what the real numbers were, but everyone was saying all these different numbers all over the place, right? And these kids were on Gab, and so I went and contacted them and said, hey, can you do the same thing for me on One Way that you're doing here on Gab and get us a big bump? And he's like, yeah. And so we started negotiating price back and forth, right? Of course, I'm not going to do it. I don't want these bots on my website, but they're for hire, right? I don't know if Gab paid them or not, but that's what these guys do for a living. So I don't imagine they would do it for free, right? These aren't exactly nice guys, okay? So followers reduced from whopping 1.2 million to 696,000, right? So anyway, he got like 500,000 suspended or something like that. But, and then Twitter's probably since figured out the rest of them were bots too and banned them all. So you have to understand, folks, when you're talking about numbers on the internet, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors going on, okay? A lot of trickery going on. And it's very easy, especially if a site doesn't intentionally try to block bots and they actually promote blocks the way Gab does, then you're going to have a lot of fake accounts, okay? And that's what Gab has. Okay, so what I did is I took some screenshots here and posted them up here. Hopefully you can see these clearly. So again, I hope you understand what I mean when I say a pump and dump scam. Okay, so a pump and dump, again, is when you promote something to increase the value and try to get a bunch of money invested into it and then dump it, the way they did with penny stocks, okay? An affinity scam, which is what he's also running, is when you go into a community and pretend to be something that you're maybe not 100% or are, but just overdo it to try to get money, to try to raise a bunch of money. Like, say, a group of Amway people will go into a Baptist church and pretend to be Baptist and get a bunch of Amway people to sign up, or get a bunch of people to sign up for their Amway downline, right? And then after they suck up all the people there, they'll go to a Presbyterian church and pretend to be a bunch of Presbyterians, and then and then try to suck up a bunch of more Amway people for their downline, right? And then go to a Catholic church or this church or that church. And those pretend to be whatever, but really they're just Amway people, okay? Trying to make some money, okay? And And that's what an infinity scam is. Okay. We'll get into that later. I don't want to get too far into that because it does touch on some personal things that I want to try to avoid and just keep it more professional and business minded. So hopefully you can read this. It says, I'm just going to read some comments here that some folks made. There's been a lot of people that have been calling Gab out, Torba specifically, on his deceit as far as user counts and numbers go, and he just kind of ignores it. I called him out several times about it, and he told me to get effed over and over again. He tells everyone to go F themselves pretty quickly and without the abbreviation. And anyway, so this guy made a good point. He said Gab CEO Andrew Torba claimed in 2016 to have 400,000 users, which he did, on a wait list. Okay, he made those claims on various radio shows and all over the place, right? Today he claims to have 441,000 total users. All right, thus 41,000 new users over 17 months is an average of 2,400 new users per month, right? So what he's saying there is after 17 months, Torba claimed to have 441,000, just 41,000 more, right? And yet Gab makes these, and then Gab keeps making these claims. Gab claims, and then he goes on to say Gab claims that it added 10,000 users this week alone. Believe it? And he does that. He'll say we had signed up 20,000 people, 30,000 people. The number, if you go back and look at his statements throughout time, the numbers don't line up, right? And so obviously he's going to say, well, we figured out that some of them were bots and removed them, right? Fine. Well, you need to qualify it and say, hey, we were wrong before, right? And you shouldn't be wrong. When you're taking money from people and saying numbers, that's fraud, okay? I understand you making a mistake once or twice, but if you just keep doing it, then people have to say this is intentional, okay? And it is intentional, folks, okay? They know perfectly well what they're, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know you need to set CAPTCHA and email verification up to keep bots off, okay? It doesn't take a rocket scientist. You don't have to be in the internet world very long to understand that, okay? So he's done a lot of pumping about the numbers, about the excitement and the growth. He's a huge pumper, and he's playing this affinity scam very well. I'm going to fight for you against Silicon Valley and all this other stuff, right? This part gets me a little angry, honestly. So I'm just going to go through it as stoic as possible. I've literally saw him back in his last fundraising campaign with an old lady, right? One in particular, I watched this conversation, and she's saying how she wants to invest in Gab. It was a $250 minimum investment or something like that. But she just didn't have the money this week. But she was hopefully going to get her check in, and then she'd have just enough to be able to invest, and she was going to spend pretty much everything she had in this $200 investment in Gab, right? And he's encouraging her to do it, right? Her last $200. And I'm like, oh, that got me. So when I saw that, I was just like, this guy is a piece of garbage. Okay. I mean, what a piece of work to take some old lady's last $200, right? Knowing that it's a scam. He knows it's a scam. Okay. This isn't some grandiose weirdo, which he's very grandiose guy, who really believes this stuff. Okay. He's intentionally lying about his numbers. He's intentionally being deceitful. He knows this isn't real, okay? Here's a post he made. Now, again, a pump and dump scam is illegal, okay? Knowing pump and dumps are illegal. Penny stock, these scams, they're illegal, okay? Let me read you his post here he made, right? It's going to democratize finance and power projects like Gab, right? Because anyone can invest. One of our users who maybe makes $40,000 a year to support a family can put in $200,000 and own a piece of Gab this early in the game. We can change their lives. What would making that $200 turn into $200,000 do for a working class family like that? I know for my own family, it would be life-changing. Those are the people I'm really fighting to make Gab great for, not make a massive return for some hedge fund or venture capitalist elite. Okay? I mean, if that doesn't boggle your mind with annoyingness, then nothing will, okay? I mean, he's more greedy than any hedge fund guy or venture capitalist ever hoped to be. He's promising a 1,000 times return on their money. That's more than any of these .coms have ever done. Okay. And this, I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's over the top. Okay. And it's ridiculous. And to me, it's beyond just dishonest and greedy. Okay. It's illegal and it's a fraud. And when the time comes, like I said, if there's no money left in Torba or in Gab, you need to sue. You need to Start Engine, okay, and make them do a better job of finding out what's true and not true that they're helping to promote in all sorts of ways through their various campaigns. Okay, um, so next up in illegal conduct from Gab is the fact that they're using tons and tons of bots to literally steal content from other conservative and Christian content creators. Okay. He's shown total and utter contempt for anyone else in the movement. When I say movement, I mean people that are on the conservative side or Christian side of things, anybody that's being censored by these big tech companies, really, right? If they're not on Gab, he would just as soon see them destroyed, right? He doesn't care about the movement or conservatism or any of these things. He cares about Gab being successful, okay? So what he's done is he's done himself, and he's encouraged other people to create bots and to republish content from these content creators on Twitter and other places and repost it onto Gab without their permission. Many of them have said, please don't do this. You're diluting my efforts online, right? And stealing my content. And he's just shown utter contempt for them and continued to encourage people to do it, because all he wants to do is make it look like he has a bunch of these prominent people on the website so that people put more stock in the website. People buy more stock in the website. People respect the website more. Okay. Again, back to the Infinity scam. I forgot to mention one point there. He's literally gone through these several different phases. When he first started out, he kind of pretended to be this Nazi guy, which was odd because he had an Indian and a Muslim partners, but from other countries. But he pretended to be this white nationalist guy, and then he kind of pretends like he isn't with the press and things like that. But to them, he's trying to be that, because that's where all of his money was coming from. The Daily Stormer crowd and those types of folks. That's who was all promoting Gab in the beginning and supporting it. That's where all of his money came from. When he basically tapped them and wanted to go to the next level, he kind of dumped them, started censoring these people, ironically, right? And went on to the next group, and next group, and next group. And he kind of does that. He's just kind of he's like those Amway folks that go from church to church and just believe whatever they need to believe to get some Amway people to sign up. Okay. So again, that's what an Infinity scam is. Okay. So now back to the copyright stuff. So he's encouraged all these people to go to these content creators' feeds and steal their content and republish it on Gab. Okay. And he was called out on it by several people, and his attitude was unbelievable to me. Right. Here's a quote from him from Gab. No, it's another Gabber. Right. They were asking about who's reposting this content on these e-celebs. And he said, no, it's another Gabber. He has our full support. E-celebs can eat, S-H-I-T, you can't read that. If they don't post here, we will automatically post here for them. Okay. He's promoting people stealing content from others and reposting it. Right. Of course he's going to say, well, a Twitter post isn't copyrighted. A lot of it is. A lot of the content that was posted there is copyright protected. Okay. It's not fair use if you're taking 100% of everything someone does. Okay. And on top of that, even if it was fair use, it's not cool to do it if they ask you not to do it. You're supposed to be on their side, fellow Christians or fellow conservatives. You shouldn't be doing something that's going to hurt them and hurt their businesses. These content creators are trying to earn livings and put out good content and do good, positive things for people and for humanity. Okay. And he's doing everything he can to hurt them and to dilute their efforts online to keep them from making money. Right. And so that really burns me. Okay. A lot. Here's another example. Now that these are of him promoting this stuff, now that these RSS feeds are on Gab, I don't need to view feeds on other platforms anymore. We could literally import all of Twitter and all of Reddit to mirror post instantly, and there is absolutely nothing they can do to stop us, right? And then this fella here, Judge Dredd, he's a classic, this guy. He says, aside from a copyright infringement suit, right? Which is a good point. The site's going to get taken down for copyright infringement. It's going to get taken down for child porn. It's going to get taken down for threatening people with their lives and things like that. There's a bunch of things the site can get taken down for. And eventually he's going to let that happen and walk away with all the money and say, they took us down. We're the victims. We're fighting for you, and they took us down. I'm going to regroup and come back and be better than ever. And he's going to disappear, pocket the money, and then run for political office or something like that in the future, right? I mean, it's a pretty obvious pump and dump affinity scam. And again, anybody that's complicit in it, I understand people believe in this stuff. They're wanting to do good. There are sincere people that are upset about the censorship of conservatives. And so they want to try to do something, anything. They don't know what to do. So here, take some money, do it, make it work. They think it's going to help. It's not, folks. It's actually hurting, because these guys are actually hurting good people that are producing good content. Okay. It's terrible. Okay. So now let's get into the sleaziness. Okay. These are all things that I consider to be illegal. Okay. That could get the site shut down, that should get the site shut down, honestly. Right. Now let's get into things that are really sleazy, and some of them are actually illegal too. Okay. So, first, let me talk about the censoring, then we'll get into the porn. Okay. So Gab, of all the alternative social networks I've encountered, and I've researched them a lot, I've done post testings of content and things like that to see who's censoring. I've done polls of people on these other sites and interviewed people from these other sites to see who's really censoring, who's not censoring, right? There's always going to be claims of censorship on every single website, right? But usually it's a bunch of weirdos posting lolly porn, which is this child cartoon porn or child porn or threatening to kill people or things like that, right? And they deserve to get taken down, right? I mean, again, I'm kind of one of these guys that believe you want to have your own website, have your own community, set it up any way you want, have whatever standards you want. You don't have to have 100% free speech every single place in the world. If someone thinks that's a good business model for them, then they can do it. If someone wants to target just Christians and protect them from porn and other stuff like that, they can do that. I don't really knock anybody for the content. I just want them to be consistent, what they say in their terms and conditions, with what they actually do in the real world. Okay. So anyway, like I said, I've been researching all these other sites. Gab is the only one of the alternative social networks that actually censors people more than any other that I've encountered by far, violating their own terms and conditions. I've seen them literally censor probably a dozen people for things that they should not have been censored for, right? And I'm pretty strict on those sorts of things, right? And these people should not have been censored for the things that they were censored for and removed from the site or the post taken down. Myself, a bunch of other people are now to the point where whenever we post something on Gab, especially if it's critical of the pump and dump scam, that it automatically goes into some spam folder so nobody can see it, right? My personal IP address, okay, is blocked from Gab. If I try to go to Gab without using a VPN and using another IP address, it doesn't let me. They blocked my personal IP address, okay? I've never posted anything like bad on there except making fun of Gab and calling them out on this pump and dump scam and just asking for information about it, right? And my IP is banned, right? It's very weird. I don't know. Maybe it's like a Twitter thing where they got some rogue employees. I know his mom is one of the workers for the website, and she's a little odd in censoring people and starting fights with people online and telling people to F off and things like that. I mean, and so it's a strange sort of a world, okay? But they're doing a lot of censoring, okay? Which again, I find disgusting with their claims of no censorship, okay? And much more than the other sites, okay? Over things that really shouldn't be getting censored. Okay, so now comes the bad stuff, okay? So regarding porn, of all the alternative social networks I'm reviewing that I've been on, this is the worst. I've seen things on Gab. I made it my entire life without ever seeing tranny porn, right? Or bestiality type porn or child porn and things like that. I've never seen any of those things in the real world, okay? until coming to Gab. Okay. Gab is the most disgusting site when it comes to porn you could ever imagine. Okay. Gab was removed from the App Store and from the Apple App Store because of porn. Now, Twitter has a lot of porn, but Twitter also has a lot of other real content, right? And so when these sites are, when these, I mean, of course, Twitter hates us. I'm not saying Twitter's nice to us or the app stores aren't prejudiced against conservatives and Christians. Of course they are, but you don't give them an excuse to do it, right? If the site is, majority of the site is just ridiculous, over the top, crazy talk, and tons of really, really disgusting and illegal porn, then they're going to block you. Okay. You have to have it. They base it on some, I'm sure there's some algorithm, some percentage, right? Not everything in the world is an attack. Some of it is real and with real reasons. I would not host Gab on a hosting service if I owned a hosting service. I would not allow Gab into an app store if I owned an app store. And I'm 100% free speech kind of a guy. Okay. I wouldn't do it because of their policies on porn and the content that they're allowing on their website and promoting on their website, okay, through paid pro members, okay, that are earning money for the content that they're posting. So when you hear people screaming about being a victim, sometimes they're not a victim. Sometimes it's legit, okay, and you can only play the victim card so far, okay. All right, so the porn. Okay, so Gab is full of this porn that's called lolly porn, right, or lolicon porn, okay? It has all the regular porn that I just talked about, but it also has a lot of this lolicon porn, which is illegal in most of the states in America. More than half of the states in America, it's illegal. So what it is basically are these cartoon drawings of children being raped and brutalized in all sorts of crazy, disgusting ways. Okay. Some of them are computer generated type things where you can really not even tell the difference between real and CGI generated. It looks exactly like the real thing with little kids, 5 and 6, 7, 8-year-old type kids being raped, brutally raped. Okay. And horrifically raped with objects and with men and with all sorts of different things. Okay. Not exaggerating here. I can't show it to you. I'm saying it out loud. If anybody sues me, I've already made copies of it all. So, it's all right there. This isn't new content that was posted a couple of days ago or something they haven't had a chance to moderate. This is stuff that's been on the site for years. Okay. So here's just one example, okay? So in this movie, this video that they have up here, right? It's a 20-minute video. These little girls here are being raped over and over again in all sorts of disgusting ways, okay? I really can't show it to you, okay? And I can't go there because if I do, it's just gonna show my IP's blocked. My IP's blocked. But this user here, for one example, there's a bunch of these users on the site, okay? So you can see this video was published on April 29th, okay? So it's been there for months and months and months. There's another one that was published, like 6 or 7, 8 months ago. There's images on here that have been there for years, okay? And this is just, I mean, it's horrific, okay? Now let me explain something even worse. This is a paid member here, right? This user, for example, is what's called a pro member. So he's paying a monthly fee every month, and then other users can sponsor him, right, for the content that he's producing. Okay, so some of it's hidden and they have to sponsor him in order to see the content, like a Patreon sort of a thing, right? Patreon sort of a model. So this guy's getting paid on behalf of, through Gab's platform to promote this kind of child porn, okay? And again, folks, I'm not exaggerating when I'm saying you don't want to see this stuff, okay? It's horrific. And these girls are raped in every single way you can rape somebody. These girls are raped in these videos, okay? And very, very graphic sorts of things, okay? And so, again, some of them are computer generated. I couldn't find any that didn't have nudity in them already. I couldn't show them to you, but they look just like the real thing, okay? It's filth. Gab is filth, okay? And all the way around the boat, okay? I don't know what else to say about that, but it is what it is, okay? So, all right, so that's that. That's my review of Gab. Now I'm just going to get into some conspiracy theories surrounding Gab. I don't really know if these are true or not true, but I thought I would bring them out because they are interesting and it is a little odd to me, to tell you the truth. Okay. And so, um, when Gab was first founded, right, these guys claimed to be a bootstrap startup with no money, no backing at all. But for some reason, according to this Business Standard website, they formed their corporation was formed in Anguilla, Caribbean island, a place known for tax hiding, hiding assets from taxes and things like that, and who owns what content, who owns what bank accounts and where monies are being transacted and things like that. It's very expensive to start accounts up out there. Okay, I've never heard of a bootstrap startup starting up a corporation in a Caribbean island from the get-go. Right? It's very strange to me. Okay, very very odd that they would do that, and I don't know what to make of it. I'm not even sure if it's 100% true, but these guys, it's a pretty reliable website, and this was the very beginning of their launch, and so now they're a Delaware corporation, but they might have a parent company that's still in the Caribbean for all I know. Okay, but apparently they were founded in the Caribbean on a tax evasion island. Okay, so that's very very odd. The next thing that really strikes me as odd is they continually play the victim. Okay, from the get go. So his this is according to him. I'm not doing any doxing or anything like that. So he was in high school. He was bullied. He was an overweight kid in high school. He was really bullied, and so apparently he really looked up to these alt tech guys like Zuckerberg and these others that were dorks, right? And were bullied, and then they became gazillionaires and had all the women and had all the power and all the money, right? So that was kind of his fantasy, I guess, right? And so pretty much when he was in his early 20s, he decided to move out to San Francisco and make a run of it, right? To be one of them, I guess, right? And um, and Dent wasn't really successful. Um, he was very, this persona that he's taken on now to be this alt-right leader and this Trump guy and conservative guy doesn't really line up with his background and his family's background at all. Okay. Let me show you this screen here first. This was the site he did before doing Gab. It was called Cocoon. Again, it was an ad network selling ads to social networks. And in this article, he just goes on. He says, it starts off, his subtitle here is "Doing My Part to Smash the Patriarchy," and Andrew Torba. Okay, so there's lots of other very, very odd social justice warrior type statements that he's made that I've seen in other posts. I didn't include him here, but talking about how, I don't want to get into it. Just strikes me as not the same person as it is now. I understand people can change and evolve, but it seems to be a very drastic change in a very short period of time. And so basically what happened is he moved out to Silicon Valley, was basically one of them, right? And then all of a sudden morphed into something else and just kind of went ballistic and forced everybody to kind of ostracize him, right? I mean, this is an exchange. What happened was he was on this in this program called Y Incubator, where they take on people, they give them money to help them promote new technologies and things like that, right? And apparently he wasn't very successful there. And so probably, I don't know what happened here, but maybe someone made him another offer to start Gab and to be something else, or to try to, run an affinity scam, pretend to be something else. But it seems like a very over the top attack, right? And so I'll just read this exchange here. It kind of speaks for itself. That was on Facebook around the time that he was thrown off of Y Incubator, right? And all the Trump stuff, right? So it starts off with this guy, last name Patel. "Andrew, I saw this. I don't think you can equate my or anyone else's statements with those in the video. We are trying to engage with you as civilly as we can. You can't just tell us to FUCK off and expect anyone to respect you for it. If you make a statement, stand by it and defend it when given the opportunity. Doing otherwise makes you the coward." He responds, I could give a shit less about your respect for me or anyone else's. Build a wall is exactly what the FUCK it means. Build a wall. He responds, that's fine, dude, but you're just as guilty as being as closed-minded as you accuse the other side of being. A few of us have given you the courtesy of trying to engage with you, but you clearly cannot formulate a coherent response to our arguments. And I don't know what else it goes on, says more, but I don't know what else went on there to say, but seems like a nice guy. Probably an idiot liberal, but he seems like a normal guy, or the reasonable person, unlike the rest of them. But anyway, this other guy, Kevin, jumps in. Why so much hatred? Everyone is entitled to their own political beliefs, but what's with all the insults and calling everyone a cuck? Which he does. He calls everyone a cuck for some reason. I think he's subconsciously afraid he's a cuck. And then he replies, all of you, FUCK off. Take your morally superior, elitist, virtue signaling BULLSHIT and shove it. I call it like I see it. And I help meme a president into office. Cucks. He loves that word. You realize you just lost a bunch of immigrants, right? Your wall keep us out. The internet is borderless. But anyway, he's just, and then, there's a bunch of other stuff like that where he's just crazy, over the top attacking people, almost like he wants people to attack him so he can play the victim, right? It's the old cry in pain as they strike you sort of a thing, right? And that's exactly what he's doing here, okay? And he's crying in pain while he's striking these others, right? He was worse than they were to him, okay? You can go on to see here, they said, in an email, YC partner, Kat empathized with Torba, was removed because of his, let me read again. In an email, YC partner, Kat, whatever, emphasized that Torba was removed because of his behavior, not because he supports Trump, okay? And again, maybe he was removed because he supported Trump, but you don't give him an excuse. He just went over the top to try to be able to play the victim here, I think, right? And it's really, really disgusting. Next up in my list of conspiracy theories is that he seems to get a lot of free press, controlled opposition type press, and he's never really suffered any real consequences. From all of his claims of persecution, nothing's ever really come of it, right? He didn't lose his domain name. He didn't lose his hosting. He didn't lose his payments. He's still using Stripe and PayPal as payment processors, I guess, right? And, that's very odd, right? With all this hype and talk about being persecuted, no one's ever persecuted him, really. He hasn't had any real persecution, right? It's just a bunch of whining and crying for sympathy and fundraising. And the next thing that really makes me suspicious is that how do you get a bunch of these Nazi-type guys on your website when you have a Jewish name, you have one partner that's an Indian, another partner is a Muslim, right? And your whole site is basically run by Daily Stormer at one point. I mean, almost all of his traffic is, if you look on the Alexa reports, it's like 10 or 15% of his traffic is coming from these, from these Stormer types, right? Daily Stormer types, Nazi types, right? Or, white nationalist types, whatever you want to call them, whatever they want to call themselves. Don't need to pick a fight with those guys, all right? Whatever. And the last thing, in conclusion, right, the other part that makes me really think it's an affinity scam is he claims to be a Christian. I don't know any Christians, honestly. I'm not being critical. I mean, there's all different levels of people's faith spiritually, and I'm not saying anyone's perfect or criticizing anyone for what they do or don't do or anything like that. But most people that claim to be Christians over and over again and post Bible verses and things like that don't constantly tell people to get effed and F you and F off and all that sort of talk, right? And they don't partner with Muslims, okay? And they don't even partner with Indians in a business venture, okay? And that's pretty basic stuff for most Christians, okay? When he got confronted about his statements about being, sympathetic to the women's rights and all this stuff, his response to that was, I was just trying to get FUCK'd, right? I mean, what Christian would write something like that? Maybe you might think it, right? If you're not exactly living for the Lord, but who would write something like that? I mean, it's ridiculous and think it's okay. And so anyway, take that for what it is. I don't really believe that this site, all those things, the conspiracy things, take them for what they are. It does look very suspicious to me, all of it put together. But regardless of that, what we do know for sure is that he's lied about his numbers. He's lied about his traffic. He's pumped and pumped and pumped the site. He's been given millions and millions and millions of dollars, and produced absolutely nothing with it. And he's been very vindictive to conservatives and Christian e-celeb type folks. Okay, so this is not a site I would recommend. This is not a site I would trust. And please don't invest in it. If you do, if you lose your money, then sue them. Okay, sue Gab and sue Start Engine if you need to. Okay, if it comes down to that. So that's my review of Gab. Sorry if it was mean, but it is what it is. I'm Derek Peterson from Hope Holdings. Thanks. Bye.